Welcome everybody to the Chat with Pat today on March 3rd. Bienvenue à tout le monde pour le Chat with Pat en ce 3 mars 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start, I have to tell you we have a very, very important person with us today that has been involved in Judo for a long, long time and still involved in our sport. It is an honor and a pleasure to present you our guest for today, Brad Farrow. He's been, I'm going to resume it in 3 things. 3-time members of the Canadian Olympic team, 11-time national champion, and also has been involved in Judo for a bursary since almost the 14th or 15th year, and we will discuss this with him today. So just before we start, let's introduce our friend Brad into the show. Normally, I've got to find him right away. I always have the same problem to find my guest and to get them inside the show. Brad, I know you're here, but you're hiding somewhere. There we go. And he's going to be welcoming inside the Chat with Pat. Hello, Brad.
Hey, Pat. I'm glad you found me. I'm glad to be
You know that thing of the Be Live, it has slides, and I gotta always find the slide in the way. And it's been the second time we've been trying to find you in this. When we started and then we practiced last week, I couldn't find you again, but I found you and you're here. I'm very happy to have you today. How is everything with you, Brad, today?
I'm going good. I mean, as you can imagine, for all the world, it's a strange place these days in the last 2 years and the last few months. But my family and our friends, we're all doing well and happy to be where we are. So I'm pleased. We're
Excellent. Well. Excellent. And how's the temperature? You're in Calgary right now?
Yeah, Calgary. So we have -6 and snowing. I was outside earlier today. So we have a little ways to go before we see spring.
Oh, my God. Yeah, same thing here. It's a little bit snowy, sunny, but we hope that snow will melt soon and we can all meet for our next tournaments and there's no snow. So we're going to Vancouver for the next tournament where we hope there's not going to be snow in Stevenston. Second one in Edmonton. I believe in April there will still some snow there, no?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And after that in May in Montreal for the Open National, will be sunny and it will be spring and great.
We may still be shoveling our driveways in May here in Calgary, but
we leave it to you. It's fine. Montreal, no more snow. All right. So before we start, for all our guests, get ready because this is I transfer it into a podcast after. But in this show today, there will be nice pictures that we will show you guys. And you have to watch the live show on the Facebook of Judo Canada because they are very interesting pictures. So before we go on this path, let's go with some of my questions for you, Brad.
Sure. All set.
Why did your parents or you decided to register to Judo when you were a young kid?
I started Judo when I was 10, 11 years old, and I started in Stevenston. I was very fortunate, but it was a little bit of luck. My parents, I was a skinny kid with glasses, and when I was 10 years old, I wasn't an athlete in any way, shape, or form. And they wanted to get me into something. So there was a karate dojo somewhere and they went in to take me in and it was adults, all adults, And I'm standing there 10 years old and I was quite intimidated by that. And my dad said, okay, let's find something with a kids class. And we lived in Richmond. So we went next to Stevenston and there was a kids class going on when I walked in and it looked like a lot of fun. So that was it. I think they were trying to save me or help me. And so that was it. So I started in Stevenston.
So you're telling me we have to thank karate?
Yeah, the fact they had an adult class and there was a lot of big key eyes. It was very intimidating for a 10-year-old.
Well. I never thought I was going to say that, but thank you, karate, for letting, to have us, Brad Farrow, with us with Judo for all these years. Thanks. Like you said, you started Judo around 10 or 11 at Stevenston Judo Club. I believe you were already a great judoka. So how was it in competition? How are things going?
Oh, you know what? I'll tell you, Judo was it was fantastic. It was a great sport for kids. Steveston had, and I have to say this, I've seen fabulous clubs all across the country, but my experience was wonderful. And I think it was part of what great clubs have, which are great coaches on the mat. And Steveston would have half a dozen or more black belts on the mat with all the kids, like at the same time. And so we had lots of care and attention. And I wasn't very good. As a matter of fact, I think I was pretty bad, actually. And for the first...
did you just said you were pretty bad?
Yeah, I think so. Relative to the talent that was on the mat, we had the Kuramoto family had lots of talent. David Sakai came from there, and they had great competitive coaches there, Art Nishi and Riki Yodogawa and Hap Harada, and the whole Kuramoto family. The brothers were teaching, and we had great coaches, and they were able to work with all the kids. We had about 100 kids on the mat sometimes when I was there, and the Hirose brothers, Ronnie Kuramoto, a lot of them were my age, and they were much better. And so I would go to these shiais all over the Lower Mainland and down to Seattle, and I would fight my heart out and win one match and lose two, and maybe lose two matches and win one, and or vice versa. And I did that for years. It was so
the beginning was hard. It was difficult.
Well, it wasn't even hard, Pat. It was fun. I didn't, I didn't actually realize that I was expected or supposed to win. I was just supposed to go, and it was I look back on those years, and I don't ever remember finishing a tournament in tears or being upset because I didn't win. I didn't expect to win. I just went out there and I did the very best I could. And my buddies Ronnie Kuramoto and Tim Hirose and his brothers Jack and Gary, who Gary and I trained together in Montreal later on, they were winning all the time as kids, and along with a whole bunch of others. So that's,
tell me, what happened? What made what changed? What changed Brad into the Brad we know today?
Okay, so it's one of my favorite parts of judo. I don't think I was ever disappointed when I never won. We get to the annual Steveston banquet, and I think I'm 13 or 14 years old. And they give awards for the best technician or the best athlete and the juniors and seniors. And then they say, well, we got a special award here for the best sportsman. And they read out the name. It's my name. So I get called up and I'm given this trophy. And the trophy is half the size as I am. And it's a massive trophy. And it was my first trophy that I ever won in judo. I've been doing it for 3 or 4 years. And it was the best sportsmanship award. And I guess it was just because I kept showing up, and I enjoyed it. And as I said, I was never disappointed with any of my judo results, because that club, I just think they instilled in you that it was about doing your best, and you're learning along the way and having fun. And I always had fun, and that was it. So anyways, the very next tournament I won. The very next tournament after that I won, and then I started winning in that 14, 15-year-old age group. And by the time I was 16, I started competing in the seniors group. You compete in the juniors, and then I think over 17 or 18 was seniors, and they would let us at, I think, 15 or 16 start to compete there. So
that sportsman trophy really opened something, and made a click. Or made you realize, or
I don't know. I don't know, Pat, if it was just time, but it's like so many things. You put in so many hours and you work hard enough at it. Things come around, and you start to fall into it. Maybe I was, I needed all of that instruction without any pressure on me to learn these things. Maybe I'm a slow learner, and I just stuck to it. But then it started to come together, and from 15, 16, that's I started competing in the likes of Butch Sloan and Alan Sakai, who were the two best guys in BC at the time. I was coming third to these guys. They were the seniors, and I was the junior in there, and they took me to the national championships when I was 16, and then the next year when I was 17, in 74, I won my first Canadian championships, and it was. So
the message for the kids is, when you love, when you have fun, when you're enjoying, doesn't matter the results. It's how much you put your passion in, and one day It'll
come. And,
it will come.
And there's a little bit of, to be a great champion or a world champion, you have to have the passion and you have to want to win. But when we're bringing our kids into this, I think we need to have them passionate about the sport and fun to do it. And and they have to work hard. And, you do have to do SHIs. SHIs are part of how you learn. But the pressure, to win, we got to be careful about that. I think I never had that pressure from Steveston. And I think that is one of the things that kept me in it for so long and enjoying it. And
the pleasure,
the fun of it. It was a fun place to be. I was always treated well, and the coaches were great. And I'm grateful to those. Ricky Yodogawa and Art Nishi and Hap and Kenny and the Kuramotos, Martin and his brother. Were fantastic coaches. And
interesting.
I think of them all the time. So
okay, let's move on then. Well, you're 14, 15, 16, and you're winning and doing. When did you realize, or you had the dream that you could go to the Olympic Games? That you really thought it could be possible?
Okay, so this is interesting. My mother tells me we were watching the '72 Olympics. And Doug Rogers was there. This is the last Olympics. And Alan Sakai went to the '72 Olympics. And while we're watching, and Alan, of course, was from my club, and I competed against him. He was older and better and senior, and I'm 15, I guess, or 14 at that time. And we're watching the Olympics. And my mother tells me that as I'm watching, I said, "Mom, I'm going to go to the Olympics." Now, I don't actually remember that, but that was about the age that I was starting to win and starting to do well. And 2 years later, three years later, I won that first nationals. That was again a surprise to me. I didn't go in expecting to win. I'm 17, and I won that. I think I know I got lucky, but I won that, and then that brought me onto the national stage. I moved to Montreal immediately after. As a matter of fact, the Canadians were in Regina in '74. I was supposed to be the valedictorian at my high school graduation. And I couldn't go home for it because we had a training camp. I didn't even know there was a training camp. The coach came over to me, and Mr. Nakamura, who was Sensei Nakamura, who was the national coach, said, "You have to stay for the training camp. You're Canadian." So I stayed in Regina. We trained, and then I guess I went home for a weekend, packed a bag, and moved to Montreal. And that was the beginning of my second chapter of my judo life, and that's where it became serious. And also. So I'll tell you, the best dozen years of my life, physically, emotionally, mentally, it was great. And that started.
Well, since you bring it up, you're saying that, physically you were at your top and that you think that those years were great. We actually have to show to our, to the people. I said that we had some pictures to show them. And, I just wanted to ask you a few questions about some of the picture we found, because we just wanted to know if you're still as fit as this today, and do you still fit in those shorts?
Okay. First off, you have to promise don't to show these to my kids. Everybody would be horrified, but
I can't promise anything because it's on Facebook Live right now. So if they're watching the Facebook, they're watching the same picture as you are.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, wow. And we have another one. We just want to make sure that you're wearing the same thing in the street, not only in the dojo, but in the street. And it's a good scene for the movie with the Bee Gees or whatsoever at the time. It's about the same thing. You could put the same music and then walking like this, like John Travolta. Exactly. You guys would be perfect.
Exactly. Well, I tell you, those were good days. And we did not have a big clothing budget, by the way. So, but we had those were these guys. There's so many of these guys, and I was so fortunate to be teammates with them. It was a wonderful camaraderie. We didn't have a lot of money. We used to share apartments, of which there could be 5 or 6 of us living in an apartment at the same time. And we supported each other. Nobody owned cars. We all bicycled around Montreal from one end to the other to get to practices and to the university and to school. And most of us were in university at the time and going to school at the same time as we're training there. And none of us had any money, and it didn't really matter. It was they were great days.
Friends,
Yeah.
fighting,
Yeah.
training, and traveling
Yeah,
around the world.
Exactly. And judo, anybody from the outside looks in and says judo is an individual combative sport. Well, I'll tell you, in my mind, judo is a team sport. You can't do judo without a team. And we take such good care of our partners. We know that. When you practice, if you throw somebody and they get hurt, you feel responsible. That's your fault.
Yes.
And so in judo, it's, the ability to throw somebody hard, like a fantastic throw, and make sure they don't get hurt. That's unique to any competitive sport. And, and we're proud of it. It's part of our culture. And you can't have a team if you're beating the crap out of your partners. You have to make sure that you fight as hard as you can. You work as hard. You can throw them a dozen times, and they don't get hurt. They jump back up and they say, I want to do that. How did you do that? Or I'm not going to let you do it again. And, that type of spirit. And so to me, judo is a team sport. It always has been. And when we talk about the bursary, we can talk a little bit about it. But that to me is what is one of the unique features about this sport. It's an individual. As a result,
it's an individual.
Yeah. Well, and he'd say, you're the only one who stands on the podium. He doesn't. The coach doesn't. Nobody else. You stand there, do it for yourself. But at the same time, it's a team sport. I needed all those people on the tatami. Phil Takahashi, Kevin Doherty, Louis Janney, Wayne Erdman, Rainer Fisher, all these guys that trained with me. I couldn't. You can't do it alone. It's impossible. No. You can't go into a weight room and bench press yourself onto a podium position. It just doesn't happen. So judo is a great sport, and I believe it's a team sport. So I'm sure I'll be overruled by the IOC on that one, but
I totally agree with you. So we are on the same page.
Yeah.
Tell me, out of all your years and everything, all tournaments, or even, like you said, partners at practice, who's been your toughest opponent?
Okay, so I had a dozen years, and I was so fortunate for those dozen years. I was able to train full time, going to school and full time for a dozen years. That was my full focus, between those two things. And but during that period, I had a group of people, starting with Butch Sloan and Daniel Hardy, and the late 70s were the two toughest guys in Canada who I kept meeting, and then Pierre Chenier, and then Craig Weldon and Dave Carter. So those five kind of represent most of the guys I fought about at the top level. Sylvain Peru was in there. There's some great athletes, and I was fortunate during that era. We had some really good guys that could keep pushing me, and they did. And those were the ones I fought against nationally. On the world circuit, Janusz Pulowski and I met a couple times.
Yes.
I trained in Japan many times. Most of the trainings were 8 to 10 weeks at a time. Tokai, Kodokan, occasionally Meiji, Chiba. But we would be out there, and I had 8 trips during those first 10 years where I was in Japan for those 10 weeks. And Kashiwazaki, I'll tell you, Kashiwazaki, I think was probably one of the greatest 65 kilogrammers ever, probably ever will be. And I trained with him. He and I were training partners. When we talk about partners, we would train together. We would do newaza for 30 minutes, the two of us. One go for 30 minutes, and we'd go like crazy. And we'd do tachiwaza for 15 minutes at a go, where he and I would go through, the training camps, the national training camps. The Japanese would invite a few foreigners, and I was lucky to be invited every time. And he and I would be on the top line, and then we would fight together. And when the gong would go, we wouldn't stop, and we would keep going. And but he was great, and I fought him internationally, I think twice. He beat me quite handily both times, but in training, we had a great aggressive training partnership, and that was great. I consider him one of my favorites. Yamashita, of course, was at the same time, same era, and what a fantastic technician. Yamashita was. And, you know, I always loved watching him. Fuji, who most people don't remember, but, you know, like he was 4-time world champion, and Fuji in the middleweight.
Just 4-time. Just
Yeah,
4-time.
just 4-time. And Fuji was the most beautiful technician I've ever seen. You know, lighter weight, he just one class above me. So anyways, those are some of the names. Domestically, we had great athletes with me, and internationally, I had the pleasure to train with some of the, you know, fight, train, practice with some of the best internationally. And
I'm happy to hear Kashiwazaki in those names, because I had the privilege to train at Judo for a few weeks, and he was the sensei there, and taking care of all the Canadian team as well, and making sure that everything was fine. But he was
he's beautiful. And I, you know, since I retired, nice. I now, when I practice, and the kids will tell you this at the club, I've got a really good combination Uchimata to Tomonogi. But the Tomonogi is Kashiwazaki's Tomonogi. And it's a completely different, you probably know it, you saw it, but most people learn it and they don't quite do it the same way. But I practiced with him and studied so much, but I never brought it into serious competition. But I do use it now in practice with the kids, and it's a beautiful technique. That combination of being able to put those two techniques together, and they support each other. So the other one that I should mention is Hector Rodriguez. He won the Montreal Olympics in '76 and from Cuba, and he had beautiful technique. Oh my goodness, he was just, and he is a wonderful guy too.
Yeah, but in 1975 in Mexico, you weren't you fighting this gentleman?
Yes, I was.
And that's a great story that I wanted to hear, because it was your first international final versus that Cuban, and who became Olympic champion. But how did you manage to win that match, and what made the difference?
Okay, this is a story. I could tell you an hour of long stories about Hector Rodriguez and my relationship. We had a great going. But so we showed up in, and I'll tell you, you know, when we trained in the summer in Montreal, I would lose 7 or 8 pounds a practice. 7 or 8 pounds of practice, and that's normal.
7 or 8 pounds a practice.
Yeah, that's normal. That was not unusual. That wasn't unusual for me, but that's how much we would lose in water. We didn't drink during practice, and hot. And we went to
Shidokan was already hot.
Shidokan. And during the summer, and you know, maybe not as much in the winter, but during the summer. When we went to Mexico, we arrived 2 weeks before. It's at altitude, a mile high. Everybody knows that. It sucks the breath out of you. And I can remember practicing, and the Mexicans had judo clubs that would provide bodies for all the teams to practice. I remember fighting with a green belt where I was gasping for breath. I could barely breathe. And I wasn't very experienced. I was really just starting my international career in '75. I was really just starting to work on learning how to do Uchimata. And so I'm doing the best I can, but I always worked hard. Well, in that 2 weeks, we started to get our conditioning coming up. And I can remember one of those practices, I lost 12 pounds in a practice in Mexico. We were working so hard. And it was, you know, I mean, people think that's an exaggeration, but we tracked our weights starting and finishing. If you're in a weight class, you always do that. And you know how much you can lose in a workout, because you have to know that.
Yeah, but 12 pounds is something.
Yeah, 12 pounds. So I can remember that was what I lost in that one of those practices. Anyways, the Cuban team, for whatever reason, came in about 3 days before. We had been there for 2 weeks. So this is a 10-minute match at the time. Pan Am game 10 minutes. So,
sorry. Please repeat. It was at the time 10 minutes match.
10-minute match in the finals. So 10-minute match. So that's where finals or internationals were. So it was a 10-minute finals match. So I got through to the finals, and I'm fighting Rodriguez. And in the very first couple minutes, he threw me so high, like we're in a huge stadium and I'm flying. You know, I've said this before about training in Japan. The first few years in Japan, I should have got air miles for the number of hours I spent in the air. And you know, the first time I went to Japan, I don't think I threw anybody. And I spent my life either flying through the air or lying on my back. But Rodriguez had a beautiful Uchimata, and he threw me a couple times. And he threw me quite hard, and I don't know why or fit, but I over-rotated, and I'd land on my stomach, like over-rotated. And at the time, you know, we didn't have Coca or Yukos, which were the smaller. We don't have Cocas anymore, but smaller. Only Wazari Andy Paul. So he threw me like he was all
never
over.
Never got a score.
No, never got a score. And then two things happened. At about the 4 or 5 minute mark, he started slowing down. And then I'm able to attack. Now, I'm not able to do very much with my attacks, but I was able to attack. And I never got tired in that match. I was not tired. And he started to completely collapse. And it was his conditioning because he was at altitude. So he's exhausted. I'm attacking like crazy. And so in the next 2 or 3 minutes, from about 4 minutes to 7 or 8 minutes, I am chasing him. And then there's I was not doing very well, except for I was, I had better conditioning.
All over him.
And so then we went into Nehwaz, and my Nehwaz was always fairly strong. It got much better later on, but it was pretty strong at that time. So we went into Nehwaz once, and he's down on a turtle, and I grab him, and he jumped up and pushed us offside. So we come back in, and in those days, if you throw yourselves offside, you get a penalty. So he gets a penalty, but not enough to finish it. So we come back on, and then we get into another. We go again. Again, he collapses or falls or knock him to his knees, and then I got a shimmy-waz on him. I got a choke. This time, we're about 3 feet from the edge. I got a choke on him, and he throws us both off outside. And that time, I did have a choke on him, and he gets a penalty. This time, he's penalized out. So, this is a case of somebody who had better conditioning because of the altitude. I didn't quit, and he ran out of gas. It's a brutal place it's a brutal place to show up, and if you don't have the conditioning, the oxygen just gets sucked out of you.
You gas out.
He was penalized. We had a riot. It was fantastic. There was a riot because he was a favorite in Latin America and Mexico. He had won a bronze medal in the World Championships the year before. And people were throwing chairs and throwing things, and they cleared the stadium. They cleared the stadium before we had the medal presentation. And then
oh my God.
Then the president of the Mexican Federation comes up to me and says, Senor Farrow, don't worry. He will take care of you. And he points to a guy who's about 19 years old who's holding a machine gun in an army outfit, and he comes and stands outside of my shower as I'm taking a shower. So that was anyways, that was a Pan Am Games 75. It was a great game. Gold medals by Wayne Erdman and Rainier Fisher, two bronzes from Chris Brewer-Brzezinski. They've said, I don't know if it's true anymore, but it was the winningest team of any sport of any time at the Pan Am Games. We only had 4 athletes, and we came away with 5 medals, 3 gold and 2
wow.
Bronze.
What a story.
Anyways, for me, it was
good souvenirs.
Well, yeah, you're right. You never forget them. Great times. And just so you know, Rodriguez and I, we went to Cuba, trained there. He and I fought probably a dozen times again throughout Cuba as we traveled around Cuba, training with the national team. Judo is a great sport. He's famous there. He's a rock star. And we fought probably every day, every other day in a stadium surrounded by, as many people as could be packed in there, small spaces, 1,000, 2,000 people in little gyms to watch him. And he and I fought. And as we fought through those weeks that we were together, traveling, training together and fighting in the evening, we got closer and closer. So towards the last, we fought to a draw. So, it was, I learned so much from him. And the next Pan Am Games, he and I were in opposite pools. He lost to Onamura from Brazil. He went on to become a 71 kilo world champion. But Onamura beat Rodriguez, so he and I didn't fight. I went to the finals, and I choked out Onamura and won the gold in 79, along with Louis Janney that year. And and Rodriguez took bronze. So one last story, Patrick, about Rodriguez. So he and I are selected for the doping, right? The doping test afterwards. So hot, we've been sweating, working all day. He and I, they take us into the medical clinic. They sit down and say, okay, gentlemen, pee in the bottle. Well, we've been sweating all day. We can't. We're dehydrated.
Dehydrated, yeah.
So they give us each of us 6 beer. Cold beer. So we're yeah, I know. So
everybody's going to learn that during our generation, it was not water or juice, it was beer.
Well, it was after the match, and they wanted us, and of course, the medical officials, everybody wanted us out of there. They took us under guard for the medical presentation, like with us. So you can't do any substitution or anything. We had the medical presentation, then we go back in, and we were in that medical room trying to fill this bottle for 2 hours. So he and I are drinking beer like crazy. And at the end, we are both, we've done our best for our countries, sacrificed our bodies, and drank all the beer we were required to drink to fill those bottles. They put us in a taxi, the 2 of us, and we sang in Spanish and English all the way back to the Pan Am village together, arm in arm, a little bit, having drunk a little bit too much, or maybe just right amount. And
my God!
I think he's a great gentleman and a wonderful man.
Resume of this is you win your tournament, get into doping control, get some free beer, and you have a friend for the rest of your life.
Friend for life. That's right. So.
Great story. I love it. You said it before. You had some matches against one of our actual national coach, Janusz Pawlowski. How was it? How were those fights?
Well, we're the same generation, so we saw each other at almost every Shiai during those periods. That from 75 through to 85, and he and I. My best years as a competitor, Janusz, I think, had a longer life, but mine were 79, 80, 81. Those were my top years. I was winning lots of tournaments. The Dutch Open, and I think it was 79, the Dutch Open I won, and I fought Janusz in the finals. And I scored a Yuko, or I scored a Coca, then he scores a Yuko. It's got a nasty Seanagi, which was a really good fit for me.
Yes.
He scores a Yuko. And then I had one window opportunity, and Sensei Nakamura has a fantastic Seanagi, and I have to say, it was never, not a Seanagi, Osotogari, and it was never my best throw, but I had one opportunity, and I went straight through, and I threw him Ippon with Osoto. And that was I'm left, he's right. And so I won that match, and that was the Dutch Open. We fought in the World Championships in 85, my last Worlds, and I had a little bit of confidence because I'd beaten him before, but I think we fought maybe 3 times, so we probably had split draws before we fought at the Worlds in 85, and I beat Mark Alexander in the earlier round.
Ooh, yeah,
round 2. He went on, world champion and so on. So, and I beat him with an Uchimata Ippon right off the bat. And then I moved into the fight with Janusz. And I think maybe I was overconfident and I stood up a little bit too tall. He has a wonderful Seanagi, and that's my weak point, is a right Seanagi from somebody who does it. And he caught me with that. And I wasn't able to catch up. I don't, it went the full time, but he's got a great technique, and he's obviously a classy, well-placed world medalist, and so I'm quite proud of the fact that I can call those guys friends, and at that time. So
good friends together now.
Yeah, so and I'm pleased for him. I know it's a tough job being a coach, but he's taken all of his skills, and he's
he's doing a great job with the kids,
with people globally around the world too. So
making them work hard.
Yeah. So
just like Sensei Nakamura, they are the same.
Oh yeah, well we worked hard. Yeah, I'll tell you, we worked hard in Montreal. Hard work was never a problem for that generation.
No, true.
Judokan. So.
Little question that is, a little bit related to the situation we had lately with the Olympic Games that were happening in China, and some people were talking about boycotting or what's going to happen. Three-time Olympian, but in 1980 you were selected for Olympic Games, and you didn't go because there was the boycott from Canada. How did you, thinking of it today and seeing the reality of today and things that have been done lately, what do you think of it?
Well, it's such a current topic, and unfortunately, the sad part of it is not new. 1980, Russia invaded Afghanistan, and so part of the world boycotted the Moscow Olympics. So that would have been my best year. I obviously, you probably understand, I felt that my opportunity to do well was my best year. It would have been.
In 76, you finished 7th. So
yeah,
in 80, older.
79, 80, and 81, I was winning competitions throughout Europe, and I was at my peak. I'd won the German Open in 1980, 81. I won the Dutch Open again. And I was. These were the competitions that all the best of the world were at. I placed 3rd in the World Universities in that period too. But that was my peak. So it hurt when we didn't go. Canadian Olympic athletes were invited to weigh in. I was a member of the Judo committee, I represented Judo on that athlete advisory thing, and we as athletes voted to go. And of course, the Canadian government, Canadian Olympic Association decided not to go, and we didn't. And I can understand every athlete being desperately upset. And
did we lost Brad? Oh, ladies and gentlemen, what happened? Did I lost my guest? Let's see. Let's wait and see if he's coming back. Hold on. What am I gonna do? Woo! Okay. What else should I do? Take a pause. No, he's coming back. Brad, we lost you, but you're coming back. You're coming back. I was like, oh, is he coming back? Yes, okay. There it is. Okay.
All right. So I was just saying, this is a repeat of what's happened historically, and it's always sad. I can empathize with the athletes, personally, because that happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of a boycott, how political interference gets in the way of what sport could and should be. But I'll tell you, as I got gray hair, and I feel like what's just happened this last week, those Paralympic athletes from Russia and Belarus have been banned from the sport and from competing. My heart breaks for those athletes, but at the same time, it's we have a global crisis, and at some point in time, even those of us that do the sport and just want to keep it separate, we can't separate sport from the rest of the world. And I believe one of the big challenges is that we allow countries, the IOC allows countries to showboat and basically sell their ideology based on the quality of the Olympic Games. And that's what we've been doing. And it's been sold to the highest bidder. We've seen it recently, and I think it's wrong. I'd love to see an Olympics that is, Olympics that are focused where they go to the same venue, maybe cycling through, 3 or 4 different sites for winter and summer games, so that we can go to safe places that everybody knows about. The financial investment is less. Athletes can train at these world-class centers. I'd love to see something like that. And then you take out this, this political aspect.
Political hijacking.
Yeah, and that's what happens. And so you got politics hijacking athletic endeavors, and it's unfair to the athletes. My heart breaks for them. And at the same time, we have real-world issues that are life-threatening. And so you can't look at this scenario without feeling distraught and pulled in different directions. I can understand every side of the argument, but right now, today, I blame the IOC for catering and pandering to this. It's I don't think they have taken their responsibility as global citizens as well as they should, and we could do better. So, anyways,
let's hope that the sport community will send the message across the world and that they listen a little bit.
Yep, and I'll tell you, as heartbreaking as for athletes, I didn't go to the Olympics in Moscow, and it might have been my best one, but it wasn't the worst thing that ever happened to me. And I have to keep in mind that Judo has done so much for me that was a little bump in the road, and my life has turned out pretty well. I'm very proud and grateful for everything Judo has done for me. So I can't look at that with any great hardship. And I know athletes who maybe that was their only opportunity to go would feel differently, and probably rightly so. But I'm not gonna. That doesn't get in the way of how I look at my life and the good fortune I've had, which is almost all good fortune. So
excellent. At the time, you were you said you went around the world, you met many athletes, and many athletes. If I had to say, was there one that was your idol, your model?
It's interesting. I admired the Japanese judoka, so Kashizaki and Yamashita, but they were my generation. Mm-hmm. The Sato brothers, one was, they became, one was the national coach for Japan for many years. His brother came to Steveston for 2 years. And as a kid, this man who was, in my mind, like a judo god, shows up and stays with us for a year. And when I was 14 and 15, I remember him personally working with me and encouraging me and throwing me all over the place. He was a great big giant of a guy. But, his love of the sport, and I can remember that impression. Doug Rogers was a little bit of a myth to me. He was so big out there. And when I was young, his story was there. He retired just as I started. So I was never on the mat with him at the same time. But, his story is great. And, the judoka, everybody has seen it. It's, it's inspirational. And
yes, it is.
And
as a former 60 or 65 sometime when I was eating, a little bit more, I can tell that he's an impressive man and very, you look at him like this. And
exactly. And he said very, and I've had lots of chances to catch up with him, and he's a very humble, very generous man. I always enjoyed time with Doug. So, so it's hard. Probably the one who had the biggest influence on my whole judo career was Sensei Nakamura. He's my personal coach. I said 2 chapters. The first one was in Steveston. Those guys taught me the love of the sport. But Nakamura-san, he was truly first off, he pushed us hard. He was a taskmaster. Wayne reminds us we went 48 days without a break. I would say, we probably overtrained. I trained with bigger guys all the time. I never had it. I always trained and fought with big guys. That probably helped my judo in some respects. Probably didn't help my technique as much if I'd practiced more with guys my own size. But I worked really hard, and he pushed us hard. But he was a great technician, and he could identify what you personally needed to do with it. It wasn't his technique. He wasn't trying to teach us how to do his osotogari. He was trying to work on techniques for each of us. And, his influence on my judo was there, as were the people I trained with, that helped me, develop those techniques. And tachiwaza techniques. But he was a great technician, and his ability to see what you had to do personally to improve your own technique was, I think that's a great skill coaches have to have for international caliber competitors. So true.
Well, let's bring some pictures of the time. I had some pictures. So see, I wanted to bring them for you and see, the good old time. We can see Sensei Nakamura in the middle here, as always, not smiling. I think for a lot of pictures, it's difficult to have Sensei smile. Then other ones here, still everybody with trophies, and Sensei's still not smiling.
Yeah. So I can't see them all, but I think that's. I saw Kevin Doherty in there, and Takahashi, and there's Osman Yanar and Mike Suarez, and there's a couple.
Yeah, some good pictures.
Yeah,
that we went through our old collection.
Man. Yeah.
Yes, I was just wondering. Oh, there we go. See,
okay.
You remember when I said to you, that those abs? Do you still have those abs like on the beach right now?
Oh, I wish I did. But that was Kevin Doherty there sitting beside me on the beach. Yeah, that was beach training.
Yeah, and the beautiful Louis Jani, eh?
Yeah, Monsieur Jani is there.
Yeah, you have
and, Glenn Beauchamp. I think Vince Griffo in the back. Yeah, so Oh, there we are.
In the
Kevin,
airplane. Some nice
Okay.
souvenirs of you guys.
That's I love that picture. So Kevin and Phil, both bronze medalists, world champions. They were great. They're part of that core where we train together. That's a picture from the Shidokan, and maybe not the Shidokan, but we.
It is.
Yeah,
it is the Shidokan.
And Phil, I tell you, it's a tragic loss. We lost Phil.
Yeah.
Last year, and I miss him dearly. He was such a gentleman, and what a great technician.
There we go.
Yeah.
Just wanted to have some souvenirs for you to see.
Those are great. I'd love to get some of those pictures. Those are great, Pat.
It would be a great pleasure to send you, but we still have few more for later on. I keep some surprises for after.
Okay.
I want to make sure, when I presented you, I resumed, 11-time national champion in 12 years, because in 1975, you finished second.
Yes.
Oh, shame on you. How did you do that? But as the most decorated minus 65 kilo, as today or during all those years, what do you think of the next generation of judokas that at your division, minus 65? What do you think?
You know what? I think in Canada, we've always had a pretty good core of lightweights. And although our medals have come with higher divisions, but pretty good core of lightweights. And I think we still do. We still do. 65, it's a very popular division. You get the kids that have outgrown 60. You get, it's 66 kilos now. It gives an extra few pounds.
Yeah, it has.
A lot of people to stay in that category that might have outgrown them. But I think, just overall, we've got great athletes and we have more of them. The more people we have in a category, the better the quality that comes up out of the top. So as long as we keep bringing the quality together, and that's the purpose of the national training centers, we can push that success internationally higher. So I think, one of the we did have in my day some really good 65 kilogrammers, but there was very little funding. And so I was the only one that was consistently funded all those years. And it was small funds compared to what we have today, but it was nevertheless only one person in every division, and only if you get yourself into an international ranking. So I was usually ranked in the top 10, and for most of those 12 years, I was ranked in the top 10 and internationally, and that qualified me for A-card status. And so gave me some money. And, I think one of the things is our ability to fund and support the national training centers, more funding for athletes enables more people to dedicate to the sport, to show up at the training camps, to show up training together. And
to stay longer.
Advantage. And and to stay longer. And that's a big advantage, So I think there's an opportunity there. I think also, the athletes have the advantage of some great support. And we had good support, but the science is so much better these days. The injury recovery. In my day, if you got a bad injury, you could be, first off, you'd lose all your funding. You'd be out of it. Your rehab wouldn't necessarily be fully supported. You'd be on your own. You'd be back home. And it just, that opportunity to recover is there. So, we see lots of athletes that have gone through surgeries, Antoine being a great example, and come back from those.
And come back, yeah.
In our day, I don't think you would have seen that. So, and I think that maybe, I'll call it might be a little unfair, but maybe smarter training in terms of how do we manage those injuries and recovery. We trained, I'd honestly say, and I'm sure there's lots of guys working their hearts out right now that say nobody can train harder than I, but I would say that as a group, we're harder than anybody ever trained. And I'm not suggesting anybody should do that again. We train 3 times a day.
I have to admit, 48 days training, you said previously. Yeah. Even my generation is after you, and I was still under Sensei's. He never did 48 days with us. We would have probably shoot him or something. Probably call on the phone. My parents would say, "Listen, Sensei, this is not right."
Then it changed during our period, but that was pre-76 as we were training. There was a very small group of us. There was really just 6 or 7 of us training together. And
reality was different.
Yeah, before the 76 Olympics. And we trained every day, like twice a day judo. And then in the afternoons, we'd be in weights and running or some type of aerobic fitness. And we'd go to different clubs to try to get more partners. And we'd travel around at night. And it was tough. But, I have to say I loved it. I was very fortunate. I didn't get those injuries. But I know that probably there's times at which we were overtrained, maybe not
at the limit.
The scientific support that would have helped us maybe a little bit better. But
yeah.
I think we did pretty good. I shouldn't second guess. We may not have done any better in any other situation.
Pretty well. You guys done pretty well.
So.
Well, we talk a lot of judo, but what is interesting is after judo or things related in your regular life. So I'm going to ask you some other questions that are less related to judo but linked to it. During your career, where was school in your mind and your priorities?
When I left, I told you I was valedictorian in my high school at 17. When I was 17 years old, I won that first nationals. When I left there, I had no idea what I was going to do. I had the grades for university, but I just wasn't motivated. And I had no idea. I had no plan of what to do after high school. But there I don't know, June 12th, I win this Canadian championships and I never go back. I graduate from high school, but I never go back. And I spent 2 years just doing judo in Montreal. And that was, I was dedicated, focused on that. Well, I was only 17, so Olympics come around in 76. I'm 19 years old. And at that point, I think Mr. Nakamura, somebody sat me down and said, Brad, you have to do something besides judo. And so I went back and looked at university programs and I went on to university. And it wasn't that I was disinterested. I just didn't even know if I had the opportunity when I finished school. But it was such a fantastic fit to be a university student and an athlete. You can do both. It's possible. And I know I did, and many others have done it. There's great stories. Keith Morgan's a doctor and champion, Olympian. His brothers, same thing. Great story. A leader in the police force here. And, so many people have been able to marry education and sport. It takes discipline. But I went in and I went with what I was interested in right then. It was a kinesiology type degree, of biosciences degree. And that was my undergraduate. And I did that at the same time as I was studying. It was a great fit, if you're an athlete, to try to understand a little bit more about your body and
your body and everything.
So I studied something that I was interested in. I was good in sciences in school, so that was a good fit. So for me, it's I think every athlete can focus entirely on their sport for a certain period. But if we're looking at our whole life, we may have a little period where we don't do nothing but that sport. But I think it's very possible to have a career of 10 years or more in a sport in which you marry education and put it, because it's for the rest of your life, the other 75 years of your life, you're going to need to do something, and you want to be able to do something you enjoy doing. And so we all know education opens the door to opportunity in the world. And then, to be fair, when you go to a world championships, 32 people line up, they've all worked just as hard, but only one is going to get that gold medal. Maybe only 2 or 3 will be able to turn their career into their success into a career. The rest of us are going to have to go back and find something that is fulfilling. And so we need to invest in that. And, I'm a proponent that all of our judo athletes should be encouraged to find not a dozen things, but one thing else that they want to invest in. And then they need to marry that carefully. Maybe it's 3/4 time courses. Maybe, it's a certain period where they take off to dedicate just towards Olympic preparation. But in their mind, they have to have something which is of they're willing to put an equal amount of passion into, and smart, smart.
But exactly
12 hours a day and go to the dojo. But, so you balance how much you do, but you don't, you have to make sure that you do it with quality. And so take it easy, do 4 classes instead of 5, or 3 classes.
And as per today, it's very easy because the school, they can adapt themselves to athletes, and they can adapt the schedule, and also, like you said, your judo career is short. If you say a 10-year career, life after that can be 50, 60 years. It's way longer.
Yeah, exactly. And so I encourage everybody, you can do everything that has to be done to be a top athlete and still carry something else. You can't carry a lot of other things, but you can still carry something else. And one of those things, it could be a career that you're working at, or it could be education. And, you have to be careful, and it may mean you have to put a few other things aside, but you can do those. And I encourage people to do that, to make those choices and make them with both the short-term perspective of your judo career and the longer-term perspective of your life. And there are so many benefits that come from judo that are knock-on things that you learn you can take. And I think my life is full of them, of things that I've...
That was going to be my next question. You probably... I think you're reading in my mind or in my eyes, because I was going to say, do you think that judo played an important role in the man that you are today? What I hear is a lot.
It did, Pat. It did. I teach. I love to teach. I love to teach classes and go on the tatami. I get great feedback from it, and I love it. COVID has been a terrible thing, and I haven't been back on the mat yet since. But I will get back there. But I know so many times kids will say to me, and it's normal. You'd expect it. But I show a technique. So let me show them Osotogari. I show them Osotogari. The next night we come back together and I'll show them Osotogari again. They say, "Oh no, sensei, we learned that yesterday." And then I explain to them that Osotogari was the first technique I remember learning in Steveston, and I'm still working on it. And that's true. I'm still working on it. It's a technique that you can never perfect, and you can still work on it. So, one of the lessons that I take to life, I've taken through life, is that pick what you want to do and then do it well. Like, do it really well. And there's lots of places to be generalists. There's lots of places. And a lot of coaches can be generalists. They can look at that. But if you want to be a competitive athlete, you need to pick things and you have to do them well. You can't just be okay at Uchimata. That won't get you anywhere. You can't just be okay at Sumigaishi. You can't. You have to work on techniques that complement each other, that you can perfect. And that may mean working on 3 or 4 complementary techniques and knowing all the others. And you may shift in your career to develop and add. But if your career is long, you're probably going to add more techniques to it. And but you need to focus on and develop things that work for you and for your style. And your coaches can help you do that. And so that my encouragement, and it goes into life, is pick something and do it well. And if you're going to be a school teacher, be a great school teacher. If you're going to be an administrator, be a great administrator. And if you're going to be a judoka and a competitive judoka, pick some techniques and be really focused on those. Do everything you can to build up your strength for those techniques, build up your speed for those techniques, build up your ways to combination into and out.
Combinations, everything. Yeah.
And work around that. I love Sensei Nakamura, has such great style, but I've had a clinic with him. I brought him into a club to do a clinic, and he spent 4 hours working on just Uchimata. And we did Uchimata in 12 different directions with 12 different types of opponents. And
impressive, eh?
And it was fantastic. It was so enlightening. So anyways, pick and choose, and just dedicate yourself to getting good, becoming an expert at something, and that applies to judo. It also applies to life and
to your life.
Be good at what you do. And so that's I have a philosophy, Pat, I'll share with you. And I didn't invent this, but I've heard it, and I heard it probably about 15 years ago, and I've shared this with young people seeking careers. And I believe this about judo. Judo people are special people. And if you've come this far and you're a teenager and you're looking at competitive judo, or you want to be a coach, and you want to be successful at judo, this applies, I think, to judo and as well to life. And I've applied it to the rest of my life, this philosophy. And it basically goes like this. you are talented, you're committed, you have skills, and you can do anything you want. You can do anything you want. Climb Everest. Be a breakthrough scientist. Be an astronaut. Be a great teacher. You can do anything you want. But you can't do everything you want. And the secret to success in life is being able to recognize all the things you could do, you might want to do, and then having the courage to say no to things you could do. So I'm an athlete. I take pride in the fact I can water ski, and I can run, and I can hike, and I can bike, and I can do triathlons and everything. But if I'm serious about a career or a sport, and I want to be the best I can be in that, I have to be bold enough to say no to other things. So I can't climb Mount Everest, be a world-class judoka, be a doctor, and be a great father or a good brother or a good mother. You can't do it all. And so my philosophy, and I've shared this, is pick what makes you passionate, and then be bold enough to describe the things you won't do that you could do. And that is where the courage comes in, and the fortitude is to be able to say, I'm going to give up this so I can do that. I am going to be a great judoka, and I'm going to be successful at school, and I'm going to be a good son or daughter or mother or partner or spouse. But I'm going to give up the bike ride across Europe, or the climb to the top of Everest, or, you can't do it all. So
that is very, very, very important philosophy and quote. And I'm going to try to translate it in French for our fellows French people. I know you've learned French. You speak a little bit of French. Ah, c'est bon. Je sais que c'est bon. Tu peux tout faire. Tu peux faire ce que tu veux. Tu peux faire ce que tu veux, mais tu peux pas tout faire. Donc, l'important, c'est de faire bien quelque chose plutôt que de vouloir tout faire en même temps. So that is very, very, I think, and in today, 2022, so many kids, they want to do everything, and they're not focused. They have difficulties to focus on certain things for a long time.
Exactly.
Because there's so many things. So they try so many things at the same time, but they're not. So that it's very important what you just said. And in 2022 makes a lot of sense.
And it applies as we go further on in our life. It's, as we start to get into careers and we want to do all these things, I'd love to go fishing every weekend and skiing every day and tatami every night. And, we want to have a full and rich life. And, but you have to make choices. And I think acknowledging in yourself, it's okay. And give yourself credit for saying no to something so you can say yes to something.
Yes, and it's important to accept that.
Yeah, it is.
At the same time.
So that's the best I can do, Patrick. It's with me, and I've been grateful. I've been helped along the way by so many people, and
I'm sure people that will be listening to it, and parents, that will be very important, and I'm sure they're going to repeat it to their kids. Trust me. Well. Two little questions before we go to the fast and furious questions. Since you live today in Calgary.
I do, yeah.
But what do you do today in life?
So for 35 years, I ran a consulting firm, and we were an international consulting firm. I just retired in May. So
retired.
Yeah, I'm retired. I'm now, as I said, my intention when I retired was I was going to spend more time at the tatami. Well, obviously that hasn't happened. So I've got to get back at that, but that's on my list.
But you can do everything now.
I can do everything. So, but I'm focusing on a couple. One is my wife and I. We love to hike together. So we're going to travel around the world, go to those favorite places I've been, and we're going to hike. And we go for 3 or 4 5-day hikes together. That's one thing. I love to ski. I've got 4 grandchildren. So I'm going to teach them to ski in the summer, and I'm going to teach them to ski in the winter. And that's another passion. And then I want to get back on the tatami and work with the kids. I know the last 20 years I worked with the senior classes, and I'm going to try to get back into that. But I also like to work with the kids. I got lots I can learn from those coaches out there, and there's so many of them that do great job with kids. And I'd really love to help and lend a hand and help out in that space. And so I'm hoping that probably by the spring, later in the spring, that I'll be able to get back on the tatami.
Well, you know what? We will get you soon. I will keep you informed, because my plan is to organize sometimes some clinics live on the Facebook Live with some guests around Canada on the judocanada.tv. And, Antoine Valois-Fortier, who is one of the new national coach, he's going to start doing it with us. But right now he's a new father. He just got a little
congratulations, Antoine.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
So now he's got he has to do everything. He cannot do anything. He just has to do things that with Louis Valois-Fortier. So I'll keep you informed, and you'll be one of our guests, I'm sure.
I'd love to. I love it. I love the opportunity to share some of these things with the kids.
Sweet.
That'd be great.
Well, you share a lot of things with the kids right now, because we're going to talk about this. It's important. Since 2007, you've been involved with a bursary, the Brad Farrow Bursary, which represents, since the past 14 years, $56,000 that you've given to young kids, athletes, to develop. Today, we announced 3 more athletes. They are, we put them on the social media, and they will receive $1,500 each. So adding to this, it's $60,000 past 15 years that you've given back to judo and to kids. Impressive. And I'm sure it's very important for you, Brad.
I think I'm so pleased, that I won't embarrass him, but I got a note back just a couple weeks ago from an athlete who's now retired, and he's very successful in a new career, but he still loves judo and he's involved. And he sent a note to me, and he said that he just wanted to thank me for the scholarship. And he doesn't have to thank me. The coaches make the decision and they do it. And
who's that person? Tell us.
Justin, it's you out there. So,
Justin Imagawa.
Yes, and he sent a lovely note, and I was very appreciative of it. And he talked about the years when he was competing and how that helped him out. The intention of that, I'll tell you.
Well, just for our guests that are listening to the podcast and watching the Facebook Live, ladies and gentlemen, Justin Imagawa received funding from you when he was an athlete. And he's been the official organizer of the Olympic Games for judo at the last games.
Yep, yeah, that's right. And he's
in Tokyo. So he's the one been supported financially by you.
Well, it's a little tiny part in one part of his career, but I was so pleased to hear from him. And that the intention, just so you know, where I started this was, I told you this is a team sport for me. It always has been. During those first years in the 74, that was my first year, and then I went for 12 years on the national team. I was always funded, and it was a little bit of money, not very much, but I got it. The people I trained with often didn't. So those competitors that were on the mat with me every single day, the Alan Legel, the Sylvain Prou, the Hubert Marchbanks, the Pierre Chenier, these guys trained with me every day. They didn't get anything, and I realized that. We now have more funding for those that are winning and those that are on the national team. And that's fantastic. We need that. That's going to help us. But we also need to support some of those athletes that are working just as hard, but don't get carded. And so my bursary focus was, I'd like to be able to support athletes that coaches see are working just as hard. There's this myth out there that the person who wins is the person who works the hardest. There are lots of people working. You can't win without working hard, being as hard a worker as anyone else. But there's lots of people that work just as hard that don't get that gold medal. We know 32 people show up at the Olympics. They've been working their hearts out. only one takes the gold.
One takes the gold.
And that person may say, boy, it was a lucky day for me. And, but anyways, all those others show up. And the purpose of the bursary is to help those who might have been injured and wouldn't get carding this year, or are just coming up and are showing up on the mat every single day and have been doing it for years. And we want them to come back and show that we appreciate their efforts. And the bursary is to help support those that are contributing to judo by being on the mat, or whose their efforts on the mat somehow have just dropped them out of contention for other funding. And that's the purpose behind it. I'm really pleased. I'm proud of the young people that have earned this. And they don't have to be so young either. If they're contributing, I'm proud that they're there on the mat. And I know there's lots of good names who have gotten a little piece of this at some time over the last 15 years. And I'm really pleased for them. I'm equally pleased for those that have gotten it and have just continued to be there for another year because they're supporting other athletes by doing that. So that's the purpose. And I hope it continues. So,
in their name, of all the athletes who receive funding, in the name of Judo Canada, I will say thank you, Brad. I'm sure they really appreciate the support. It makes a big difference. And as you said, Justin today, working for the Tokyo Olympic Games, wrote you a message. He remembers. It's in his head, and for his entire life, he'll be remembering that he received support from you. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure. And Judo's given me so much. So it's very little that I give back. So I'm pleased that it can make a difference. So thank you.
Well, thanks to you. But now you won't say thank you, because now we're going to go into the flash questions. Okay. And we will have the last two pictures of our show to make sure people watch the show properly live on the Facebook. So are you ready, Brad? Because these are going to be the flash question. Get to know Brad a little bit more. If you have never tried judo, what sport would you have done?
Cross-country skiing. Good fitness sport.
Cross-country skiing.
Cross-country skiing. I love it. It's great. I love watching it, and it pumps my adrenaline. And I only compete against myself, but I'm out there. So
you're not picking an easy one because it's very hard.
It is, but it's
I love those
heart-pumping sports. So those endurance sports, and that's kind of my judo was always that type of effort for me. So
well, 10 minutes is my time was 5. It was way enough. So 10, you're a machine. What is your favorite movie?
Okay, I got lots of favorite movies, but I have to go back to Rocky 1. Okay, and he didn't even win in the first Rocky one. But I tell you, the come from behind story, I love it. I can't help it. I'm a sucker for the underdog story. So
a classic, exactly. Rocky 1. Oh,
has to be Rocky 1.
When he's calling his wife, with the voice, Adrian. Yeah. Yes. Favorite meal?
Has to be sushi. So I got my first little bento box in Steveston when I was 10 years old. I didn't even know what it was, but that was the lunch box that I got, and I've loved it ever since. And my wife and I, it's our favorites. Laurel and I go out and we're treating ourselves. We'll go out for sushi, and if it's just a romantic dinner or with all of our kids and our friends. So,
favorite activity besides judo?
I tell you, it changes. I'm active. I like to be active out there. Skiing, summer, winter, snow or water skiing, hiking, running. I don't run as much. I got a little bit of a sore knee, but grandchildren. Right now, grandchildren, I'd say, are favorite activity. So.
Oh, but you were saying water skiing. I was going to ask, are you wearing those shorts during the water skiing?
Oh, under my wetsuit.
I knew it. If you had to pick best qualities, let's say 2 or 3, for a coach and for an athlete.
Okay. And this probably changed over years, but I think technical. Our coaches need to start with the youngest right through to the most senior, high technical skills. So I really think every club can have lots of coaches, but there should be at least one in that club that really understands techniques and can do technical analysis. That's one. And then 2 is a teaching ability. Judo is such a complicated sport. How do you take, your 160 pounds or, you're 75 kilos and you pick up somebody else who's 75 kilos and you stand on one ankle? How do you do that? It is a technically complicated sport, and you have to make it simple. And so we teach these techniques, and just understanding them and knowing them is one. But then how do you teach them such that they build constructively skills on skills that allow them to be taught? And I think a lot of times I see students lost because complex techniques are shown all at once. They're thrown with, oh yeah, do this, and then do this, and then do this, and 20 things you have to remember in the most complex physical activity that you can possibly imagine when I talk about technical complexity. So being able to build simplicity into learning is also a great coaching style. The third one is you got to make it fun. There's something about repetition and doing the same thing over and over to get it right, to build foundational skills that can be boring and hard work. And you got to be able to do that and sometimes make it fun. So that's for coaches. For athletes, focus on mastering a technique, and then a second technique, and a third technique. Focus on those. Learn all the techniques in general, but you got to dedicate 80% of your time to 20% of your techniques. It's the 80-20 rule, and make sure that's true. Like, measure yourself. Did I spend 80% of my time working on my 3 major techniques? Was it my uchikomi and my practice and my reviews? Focused on those. And if you want to be a champion, you can't do it with a bunch of mediocre techniques. You have to have a couple.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, so that's one. And then never give up. Like, if you're in it, if you're shooting for the Olympics, it's 4 years out or 8 years out, and you decide to start now, you can't give up. You got to be dedicated the whole time. So you need to get people around you willing to support you. Work hard. You can't give up. When you meet those, and you will meet them, you'll get an injury. You're going to have to work extra hours. You're going to have crises on the job front, things that'll get in the way, but you can't give up. So I'd say those two, and, focus on one area and don't give up. So.
And now, are you ready? Because these are like pictures.
No.
And these are my questions. My questions are, will we see you again with this kind of hair, longer but gray?
Oh my goodness, I don't think so. I think this is about the maximum I'm going to go in length, and I don't know how it got gray. I don't know when that happened. That's a mystery to me.
Well, I found another one where it's way longer. Trust me. So, if you can do that again, as per today with your hair, that would be impressive.
You know what? I think maybe I never had a ponytail, but maybe that was a time I could have. I seen that. That was in Montreal. I know that was in Montreal, Shidokan, the first year or so. And then I was there, and that's still a Stevenson Judo Club crest on there. So that's
this question comes from me because we had posted, some requests from people if they had some questions for you, and somebody sent us a picture that I received in the end. You haven't seen that picture, and the person is asking, "Are you still wearing that jacket?"
Okay, I think that was 75 Pan Am Games or 76 Olympic Games, somewhere in that period. What a great one! I might have wore it when I had a part-time pizza job, delivering pizza. So.
Well, you know what? For Christmas, it's a perfect jacket that would fit, and I don't know. I don't know why a person asked that question. I should
bring it out. That's right. Yeah, I don't know where that is. I think I've long since lost it, but that's a great memory, that one. So.
Yeah, great souvenirs and great moments. So, Brad, before I let you go, because you are a busy grandfather, busy retired man, I have one last question for you. What would be the best advice you could give to our young generation for their and after career? And could that be the quote that the philosophy that you just brought us just previously?
Yeah, I think so. Make choices. Make concerted, thoughtful choices about where you put your energy. and be bold and proud and confident enough to say, I did that. I'm now going to focus on this. And, so pick your kids, pick your spouse, pick your family, pick your career, pick your sport. Do those things, do them well. Don't try to do everything. And I think you'll be happy and you'll be successful if you follow those guidelines. It worked for me anyway, so that'd be my advice. So,
well, you know what? We said we did this whole interview all in English because your first language. No, it's okay. It's okay. Sometimes next time. But somebody wrote us on the internet, which is from Quebec, and said it's very interesting. So do not worry. I'm sure everybody will be able to understand everything that you said, and I'm sure that the message that you've passed to the kids will go through all the clubs, whatever, French or English clubs. Brad, the message is clear and they understood it.
Oh, merci beaucoup. OK. La prochaine fois, sur le tapis, je vais parler en français.
Excellent.
Okay.
Well, Brad, merci beaucoup.
Oh, merci à tous les gens.
It was a great honor to have you on the Chat with Pat. And like I said, next time we see you and next time people will be able to see you, we'll be on the mat showing some techniques on our website, judocanada.tv.
Okay, that's great. Pat, thank you very much. And good luck on all the things you're doing. Judo Canada is doing some really good things. I'm really proud of what I see out there. And I should have said congratulations to the women's team. They look so good. I'm so very proud.
They did very well.
And they continue to do well. And the strength and the depth shows up really well. So well done. This has been a good couple of years for them, and I'm really pleased. So
thank you very much, Brad. Merci beaucoup. Okay. And that's it for the Chat with Pat of As Per Today. We'll have another one probably about in a month. So to all folks across Canada, we say goodbye, have a good day, and talk soon. Take care, Brad. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Merci.